So today, we're going to be learning about independent and dependent variables. Before we do that, I want to talk about optimism. And now, who can raise their hand and give me a definition of what they think optimism is? Meg.
Positive.
Being positive, yes. Do you guys want to add anything else? Neil, it looks like you've got something.
Believing you can do
Believing
it.
you can do it, there we go. Greg, you want to add anything to that? Or positive? Being happy at what you're doing. There we go. Do you mind doing the next slide? So, optimism. Optimism is finding what is good in the world and celebrating what is good in the world. There are a lot of negative things around us in the world today, but what we want to do is we want to be optimists. We want to find what's good, we want to celebrate that. So in the classroom, when you see a fellow student that answers a question or you see someone else that is doing something right, here's what we're going to do. I want you to turn to your neighbor, give them a high five, and say booyah. So Meg, I'll give you a high five. We'll practice this one time. Booyah! So, if any of you guys answers a question correctly, or if you guys, even outside of the classroom, see someone doing something that is good and right, give them a high five and say booyah. So, if you guys answer questions in the next couple minutes, someone turn to your neighbor, give them a high five. Maybe not shout for the sake of keeping on task, but give them a high five and reward them. Anyhow, moving on. Independent and dependent variables. Can you guys, show of hands, know what an independent variable? Tell me what an independent variable is. Anything you got. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for the right answer, but what do you think, Amelia?
Well, I know dependent variables depend on independent variables.
Excellent. Greta or Meg, did you want to add anything to that? You don't have to. Meg,
Well, if it's like in an if-then, the independent is like the if part of the statement.
the if part of the statement. If you want to add anything, you don't have to. If you don't want to.
Yeah.
There we go. No. All right. Next slide, please. So independent variables. You want to hit the next one, please? I like to think of independent variables as the Declaration of Independence. That is when our country, we declare that we are independent from Great Britain. So, an independent variable is a value whose change will influence others. So like we said, it's an if-then statement. So, if independent variable, then the dependent variable will change. Alright, next slide. We're going to talk about dependent variables then. Dependent variables, they rely on others. They are going to rely on the independent variable. So, like our country, at one point we were a dependent variable, and then we declared our independence. And the way I like to think about it, dependent variables, is a snowman, because a snowman depends on cold temperatures in order to maintain his shape, because if the temperature rises, then he no longer is a snowman. Anyhow, so we're going to, quick example, if you hit the next slide. So independent and dependent variables graphed. I'm going to hit the next slide. So, here we have independent variable on the, which axis? Axis, excuse me. Greta.
X.
X-axis, excellent.
Y.
Can I get a little high five?
Booyah!
There we go. And Amelia,
Y.
right here.
Y-axis. Right
Excellent. There we go. Booyah.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, you will always graph independent variable goes on the x-axis. Y variable is the dependent variable. Excellent. Go to the next slide. One more time. So, we're going to give a quick example. And in the spirit of the Panthers and their big game this weekend. So, here we have temperature at game time. We have 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, 25, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And we have the number of points that the Panthers put up in each game. Now, as you can see, as the temperature increases, independent variable, dependent variable increases. So as you can see, if it's warmer outside, the Panthers will score more points. And if it's colder outside, the Panthers will score less points. Does that make sense? Everybody, are we all on the same page? Can I get a booyah?
Booyah!
Alrighty, next slide. So now, here's the graph as we've shown. What is on our x-axis? By a show of hands.
The independent.
Independent variable. And Amelia, you want to finish the second half of this?
On the
It's on the
y-axis
y-axis.
is a dependent variable.
Excellent. And so now we have our beautiful line right here, which is showing the points scored versus the temperature for Panther games. And so, go to the next slide. Excellent job, and thank you all for your participation.